Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Rootless Conversation. I'm your Rootless host, Greta Bayrami, and today I have the pleasure of sitting down and having a conversation with a very well-known real estate agent in the city of Boston who you may have seen on a billboard and who is himself part
Yep.
of the movement team. So, Dante, I am super excited to have you here. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Brett. I appreciate it. Thank you and to the Rootless team for putting me on this interview today. I'm excited to kind of chat about what we have in store and, any value I can provide and just kind of where I started and, where things are at now. And I'm a real estate broker. I have a team, the Movement Group. We're based off of Compass Real Estate, which is the number one sales-based volume brokerage public in the country. And we have the number one office for sales in the state located on Newberry Street. So we are doing a lot of cool stuff in the residential real estate side, strictly residential. I have of 8. And as mentioned, we are the Movement Group, and we're pretty much servicing all of Massachusetts aside from the Cape and the Islands. I mean, we're all over the place and we have fun with it. So,
oh, yeah, you do. I mean, we do see a lot of the Compass team everywhere. But Dante,
yep.
before we talk about where you are today, I want to take a moment to go back and let's talk a little bit about your roots and your journey and where you're from.
I grew up north of Boston. I attended prep school in high school, St. John's Prep, and I ended up venturing Quinnipiac University, graduating 2015. And sort of throughout that course and lifetime being there throughout my educational journey, I sort of was able to really be good into networking. Like I had a lot of different friend groups, a lot of connections. And during that point in time, I was also working at my family business, which is a privately owned transportation freight delivery business based out of New England. They're one of the largest independent carriers right now. And, it was awesome because I got to sort of be in the grid of things, but I was also privileged enough to have an amazing education and environment and background where I could get an education through the books and also sort of be in the background working as young. I was like 12 years old. So I had sort of that balance of like two different, and when I grew up in that family business, it was amazing because I didn't just start off working in an office. Clearly at 12 years old, I was working loading trucks, being on the dock, and then I would go put on my khakis and go to my prep school, right? So it was like a cool, and from there basically I just grew into the family business. As my college career sort of was winding down, I had to make a decision on what I wanted to do. And at that point in time, I had my father was sick. My father passed away. So it was kind of a crossroads for me on what I wanted to do personally in my career. But I knew where my fell into, and it was more along the lines of networking and trying to provide value to people. And I made a venture into real estate not too long after I graduated, from college and whatnot. So
I'm so sorry to hear about your father. And no, so you're out of school, you're young, and you make this really bold move. I mean, most of your friends were probably heading to corporate. What was that
Mhm.
feeling like to try to do the entrepreneurial route?
So there was a point where I graduated and I went back to my family business for about a year. I made the tough decision at that time to pretty much leave, something that was going to be sustainable for the rest of my life. Building off of my family business, leaving a legacy behind, leaving a lot of questions unanswered. But in the back of my mind, I knew I could do something that was more catered to myself, whether that be bigger and something that I felt like I was more passionate about and driven towards. So there was a point in time where I was at my family business. I had to have the hard decision with my family members to leave the business. They wholeheartedly supported me on that because they knew that I, had specific skill sets that, I definitely, pretty much bring to life. And then so I went to a startup company in Boston, very successful company, learned a ton there. So I was pretty much going through like an old school business for my whole life. I didn't know anything outside of like, the cut and dry, like picking up the phone, making a business deal happen with a handshake. Now I got put into, pretty much like it was within the realm of like Amazon, right? So like it was a lot of
Yeah.
cloud-based services. So then I got a taste of like something completely new school and it just hit me and I'm like, okay, this is great, but it's still like I got a taste of this. And then things just progressed. So year one, family company, back in my family company. Year two, I'm at a tech startup company, amazing company. Decided to leave there after year two. And then I've been in real estate for about 8 years, a broker. So
And what was that first career move? Do you remember like your first month in real estate? What did that feel like? Because, you
Yeah,
know, everybody wants to be a real estate agent. There's a lot of
yeah.
requests we get on Rootless every day. People want to become agents, but talk to us about that first couple of months in real estate.
So you're asking about my career jump from corporate to real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting. Most people would be scared, afraid, don't want to do it kind of like partially, but they don't
Yeah.
go for it. And I said to myself that this is what I said. I had at the time, I had a comfortability zone where I could go back and have a cushion and say, if I failed at this, I'm going to go back to my family business. That's really what I said. And I said, I'm not going to let that stop me. What I did was I pretty much just acted like I had no other assets, no other avenues. And this was my last hope. This was my last chance. This was it. And at the time, I was 24 years old, but I had that mindset of, okay, I'm not making the money I want. I'm not at a place where I need to be, but how do I get there? And I'm not going to let my safety net deter me away from that. And that was the most important aspect, that I had this tunnel vision, and I continue to do that. And if I didn't have that vision and I had that as a fallback, I would be back there right now. But I went through so much adversity to get where I am, and I continue to build. But yeah, that was like super important to me. A lot of people that want to get into the career, a full-time job, and I want to make that transition. It's not like that. It's cut and dry. You either do it one or two. You're either in or you're out. There's no middle ground in real estate. There's no part-time real estate. You're in or you're out. And any type of large production broker out there nationwide can agree and attest to the fact that if you're not in it full-time, you're not giving your client time of your time and effort. And that's what you need to do in a service, backed industry. So there's a lot of different moving parts with that, but all in all, you have to just dive in.
And what would you say are the layers and the characteristics that make this all in realtor, right? Like, how do you become all in? Like, what do you need? To those listening, what skill set do they need to identify in themselves before they become a part of this journey?
Well, something that I took over from my previous family business was that you need to learn the entire business inside out. My father didn't let me work in an office environment until I had how to get into a truck and drive a truck if I didn't know how to load the freight properly. So I pretty much aligned those sort of skill sets with the real estate industry. And I said, I have what an attorney does on a daily basis, what a loan officer does on a daily basis, how a consumer values and looks at specific aspects. And then once I kind of sort of absorbed all that and just soaked it up as I was continuing to work, making some money on the side, I felt more confident in my conversations, right? Because I already had that trust. People have already, I had that inherited trust from my previous relationships, from education, from sports, all that. So people trusted me. Now it was my game and knowledge to provide the value to them. And that didn't come until probably year 2 or 3. But realistically, you have to implement knowing the business inside out before you can actually get your feet wet in the business. And I think that a lot of people think that it's an instant gratification business because of what they see on television and what they see on the media, as you mentioned prior, but it's not certainly like that whatsoever.
What is a realistic expectation? Like, what should first year agents expect in terms of deals, or just in terms of work-life balance? Like, what are they in for?
It's all about where you start and who you're working with, right? Before I say with, because real estate isn't 1099 independent contractor business, but when my team members are working with me, they're able to leverage my advertising, my skill sets, my knowledge, my capabilities. And you have to be able to trust people. And that's trusting your broker, trusting your colleagues, collaborating with your colleagues, building a brand, not only for your clients, but also for the industry. Because industry relationships matter just as much as clients' relationships do. Clients' relationships come and go. They're hopefully going to be cultivated for a lifelong eternity with your client, but they're not in the field all day, right? They're buying a home, selling a home, they're a consumer, you give them the best services possible, but your industry peers are going to be there forever. So when you do bring a client to a property or you are in a negotiation and you have a good relationship with that broker, they're more than likely going to be there, right? So it's important to build your network based off of who's in the industry as well. And I made a presence for myself in the industry before I made a presence for myself and that's something that I don't see a lot of people doing on a daily basis.
That leads into my next question. I'm familiar with how you made a presence for yourself, but can you talk about how you made a presence for yourself. How did you build a brand while working inside, these bigger brands, these bigger brokerages?
So I was fortunate enough to have a really good broker when I started who educated me. And I noticed that there was a sort of a flaw system with real estate, and it was how people market themselves. And with real estate, there's obviously a lot of legacies involved with that. So if somebody's been in the industry for 10 plus years, they have bragging rights, right? But I realized that word of mouth only spreads so fast. Social media, with a click of a button, can go viral in a moment. And at that point in time, I identified that there wasn't much of sort of a presence with social media marketing for real estate at that time. But, being familiar with e-commerce, being familiar with other industries such as fitness, I knew that those were very prominent with marketing, with media and collaboration. So I said to myself, how can I stand out? And what I started doing was building an educational platform and videos, putting them on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And I had the early skill sets and education from my broker who helped me and answered questions for me when I needed to. But I asserted myself as the educator before I became the producer. And that helped me a ton to get into the industry. And before you know it, a year or two later, I'm up on stage talking in front of, thousands of agents, real estate agents, on how to use social media. So like I worked it from like the top down, where like most people are working from the bottom up. I made myself the presence in the industry. My industry peers trusted me. Therefore, it gave me the confidence that I can go out there and really do some business.
That's incredible. And what was those early days like? Were you spending a lot of time? The reason I ask these questions is that, again, a lot of people think it's easy to put content together. Talk to us a little bit about the dedication that it took for you to be able to produce these educational pieces.
Yeah, I mean, the educational pieces, we started I started with my, business partners at the time, just like rolling film for like an hour, a couple hours a day. And we would just make content. We would shoot it for, we'd sit there and just come up with ideas and do like 2 or 3 videos a week and really just put them out there to everybody and anybody. And then we just essentially built a library. I built trust, right? I started building sort of what I like to call now as an ecosystem. So if somebody is out there viewing one of my videos, I'm not begging them to buy real estate like you see with most people. I'm advising them and I'm helping them and I'm educating them. And the educational content has caught on in the past couple of years, pretty much, around the country with real estate advertisement. But I was doing this 7 years ago. And we continue to do those type of videos up until today. And I've built just such a big interweb of like trust, communication, that ecosystem. And it's more important to me than doing a deal, in my opinion. So,
I mean, we definitely are fans of your videos. So how did the movement team come together?
Yeah, so the movement group, Tim G, came together the thought came about 4 years ago, I should say. We were excelling at a very fast pace, and I was at a great brokerage at the time with a great leadership and skill sets. But at the end of the day, I left corporate for a reason. I left corporate because I wanted to be my own leader and I wanted to be my own entrepreneur. And the only way I could really do that is if I break the chain even more and say, I'm ready to go. And at the point I was 26 years old, and Compass came in and gave me, and trusted me and gave us an incredible opportunity to be a part of their organization. And they trusted us at a young age. And they said, you can start up your team here. They sort of believed in us and they still do. And basically we started off with, 3 people and we now have, an 8-person team, and we're very, very, very selective on our processes because we'd like to build out the actual systems before we actually build out this huge, robust team that typically doesn't usually last unless you have that kind of scalability. Yeah. So for us, it's about our personal environment and internally how we can all collaborate and produce at the highest levels possible. And that's my goal. And fortunately, we have an amazing team with an amazing camaraderie. And, I'm just excited to see where these guys are going to go.
To follow up on that, how do you select people? Is there something that the movement group looks for?
Yeah, we look for social media presence. That's today's day and age. And if you don't have a social media presence, unfortunately, in this industry, you're not going to last long if you're just starting off in the industry. There's a lot of great brokers out there that don't even know how to click a button on social media. and they've been around the industry for many years. So they've built up a great reputation for that. And that's amazing. But if you're a new entrant within the market and you're going to be a real estate agent for the foreseeable future, you need to not only have social media, but you need to have the right presence and the right mindset. And we are very, very selective with that process. And of course, personality plays into it too. A lot of people, I think, enter into the industry for maybe probably not the best reasons, but during the interview process, I ask very specific questions that I can get a yes or no from pretty quickly. So,
And another question that came out of that last statement was, how do you make people reach their full capacity? You mentioned that you like to keep their team small and you want everybody at producing just, very at high production value as an employee. Like, so how do you get that out of people as a leader?
In a few different ways. Everyone has their own specific characteristics, and you have to really dig into bodies. Like, not everyone is built the same. Not everybody has the same capabilities, but everybody has their own personal skill sets that you have to figure out what those are. And real estate is such a versatile industry. You see people who are great with mathematics, so they're very good with algorithms, and therefore they're able to do things and expedite, numbers, and people gravitate towards that. Then you have people's person who's out all day having those conversations and just kind of it up. So there's all these like little different niches that you can have within the industry. And in order to really bring the fullest potential out of people, honestly, you just have to got to figure each other out. What I have for skill sets, people might not necessarily, not everybody might gravitate towards, but if I can get, two of my team members to do specific tasks that I perform, two of them are going to do really well at that, four of them might not. So I have to figure out where those other four can really come in and bring their value, right? So it's really just trial and error and figuring out, what works best for each individual team member. And I've learned that throughout my business too, that you have to look at it from a client's perspective, because not every client is the same.
Right.
So I can have somebody that's, a CEO at a large corporation, a large bank, and they're not looking at the property as it may be one of my first time home buyers is looking at the property. Maybe they're looking at an investment. So it's all these different people and personas, and you have to be versatile with that. And that's something I tell my team all the time.
Oh, that's great. So thanks for sharing that. That's definitely paints a really clear picture of, that startup story of building the team. Is there anything else before we move into the present? Is there anything else that you want to point out to those people listening that are in the very early stages or maybe thinking about real estate? Is there any other tip that you would want them to be mindful of before starting this career path?
There is, and you have to have a long-term goal in mind. Okay. Real estate has so many different variables to it and different paths you can take. You have to at the beginning understand your path. I knew that sales was my path. People ask me all the time, why aren't you investing in real estate? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? I have my personal assets that I do invest in, but that's not at the forefront of my business. My business is sales. So if you're an aspiring agent, you have to know your reason as to why you're using your license, because there's so many different avenues you can go down and there's so many different brokerages. So my best advice to that would be where you start is going to dictate and determine the remainder of your career and how successful you are.
And has your ideal client changed? Like, who was your ideal client 7 years ago and who is your ideal client today? Has it changed or does it remain the same?
The natural progression of real estate is interesting because typically it's just based off of age demographic. So I was fortunate to start so early that I sort of grew organically with my own network. So a lot of those guys and girls were renting at the time. And, I was also, aspiring to be in sales. I had, I did multiple deals my first year. I did like close to 8, which is pretty high volume of sales for year one. But in the background, I was doing a lot of rentals to stay afloat, right? But with those rentals, I was building and creating my own personal network, right? I didn't necessarily care about sales year one, and I didn't, because for me, I wanted to just build my brand, build my network with the people who were going to go with me. It was very important. So that's kind of how things accelerated in that sense.
So the client almost grew with you rather than changing.
Yeah.
And how were you, talking about the movement group now and you within the movement group, Talk to us a little bit about how you help clients differently. Like what separates you from other teams? How are you assisting sellers and buyers?
We're a hybrid dynamic team. So when you talk about geographic locations in real estate, it's important to understand where you're selling, and why you're selling that product. But given the fact that we're a hybrid team and we span from Boston, north and south of the city, we provide a lot more value to sellers. So we're able to bring buyers and from all different, walks of life in all different areas, and not just hyper locally, also nationally. Just with our reach with social media and our social media presence, we've drawn hundreds of thousands of eyeballs on us, probably monthly, of people looking at our media, watching it, telling their friends, telling their family. So we're drawing so much attention now when we do list properties for our clients, when we're selling homes, we get so much more exposure than the average person might, just because of our social media presence alone. But then with social media also comes hard work. So we're also on the ground all day, and we're doing a lot of other things in the background that separate us and make us that full, well-rounded team that'll, we are going to continue to execute and do. And that's what separates us, is the hard work. We're there selling property. And when we work with our buyers, we're helping them make the best decisions possible. And when we're working with any client, we're helping them make the best decisions possible. But we're at the forefront of education as well. So not only do we have the media side, the education side, but we also have that work ethic that sort of ties things in together.
And this leads me to a very interesting question. And this question came because we had a lot of people wanting you to answer this question. So the question becomes, how do you brand successfully and build a brand successfully while within a brand like Compass, right? Like Compass is a very well-established company, as you mentioned, nationally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows Compass. So how do you build the movement group within Compass? Does it become challenging, or have you learned how to leverage it so that it's still two separate entities?
There's layers to everything. You have your personal brand, which is myself. You have your team brand, and then you also have the Compass brand. So if you look at it in layers, you'll know when and where and why to market and advertise the way you do. Unfortunately, all three of those layers come into effect at different times. So I'm selling, obviously, real estate. You have to have a personality. That's me. You have to have a team and assets. You want a second opinion? I have 7 other agents. And then you also have Compass, which is the #1 brokerage in the country and the state for sales. So I have them as well. So there's different layers to it. And if you have the notion of like understanding that from a seller's point of view, or a buyer, or any consumer, you have a full package. And the way I brand, and I don't necessarily stay outside of the cohesiveness of the Compass branding. We're black and white. We have our branding. We are very cohesive with the Compass. We embody what the Compass environment does and promotes. And, we're proud to have Compass on all of our, advertisements and logos. They're a powerhouse of a brand. And the best part about Compass is not locally, it's nationally. We have so many amazing relationships with different colleagues in different states that we're collaborating, cross-collaborating, talking about the market, talking about trends and changes throughout the market, seeing things come from the West Coast to the East Coast. So there's different ways and there's different levels to marketing depending on who you're talking to. And that helps me a lot.
That's thank you for explaining that, because the reason I asked is that a lot of realtors either do it or they don't do it at all, right? Where they just work for Prudential or Keller Williams, and then some do it as their name inside the Keller Williams, the Prudential, and and some do it to your level, where it's Dante is the movement group, and then it's Compass. So that's why it's very interesting to hear you talk about it, because it seems like the ones that do all three essentially have equal power, right, in their own careers. It's not just within the company or the brokerage that they're representing. How do you scale from here? What's the next step? How do you build up?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're very systematic, and like every step that we take, we have a thought process behind it and logic. Whether we fail or not, we're going to learn that. But essentially, the growth model comes internally, right? We want to build out our team to our fullest potential, and as people, as our own, way of life, and just having a quality of life. So seeing everybody and then building out from there. But we're incorporating a lot of, different systems within the team, whether that be, technological, backed, or that might be actually bringing on a little bit more assistance in the back end for our transactional side of things. So, fortunately, we have a great agent on our team who also assists us and is a showings assistant as well. I have an amazing transaction coordinator. So we're building out the team as a business. We're building out the team as a brand. We are not doing things, as I like to call, a 1099. We are 1099s, but I like basically like your prototypical, I sell real estate. What's next? We are a brand, we're a business, and that's something that we, take pride in ourselves with. So as long as we have a rounded business and everybody is doing well and everyone continues to build, the next steps for us are just going to be work to our maximum potential and capacity until we're ready to take on.
We have a next follow-up question to that is like, do you think creativity is key to become a top agent, right? Like, what's a top agent, best characteristic? Is it their creativity to be innovative and stay ahead of the pack?
Creativity is everything. It's the only thing. Honestly, if you're not creative and you're not thinking outside the box, you're just going to be following the pack, and you have to be the leader. And you have to follow the pack to be the leader. But if you're not willing to break outside that box at some place in time, you're going to be complacent. And creativity goes from working with your clients and building out a system that's most effective for your clients, right? What do all your clients have in common? Are you able to spend your time wisely working with your clients? And then also from a branding standpoint, how are you going to be creative? And that goes past like TikTok and Instagram trends. Like that's like you have to be a creator, and you have to put yourself in the shoes of a marketer in any industry, in my opinion. The best CEOs and the best leaders, people who can sell, and the best marketers. But if you treat this business, specifically real estate, like a marketing business, and you're an actual creator, and you're going to do really well.
And to follow on that, what's a branding advice to a newbie in the business, right? They're listening to this interview. They want to do exactly what you're doing. They want to do the Dante persona. They want to do the movement group. They want to like hopefully work for a Compass-like company or Compass. What's a branding advice that you would offer them?
And there's a lot of amazing companies out there, just as a side note too. I mean, you can do this, just about anywhere. But something you said in terms of branding ideas for a new agent, that's a great question. I think you have to break that down, and you have to say, do I already have, right? Do I have a network? Do I have an organic network? Friends, my family, people who trust me and know me and love me. Do I have that already, right? To an extent, to a level. And if I don't, how do I build on that? And you have to attract people, not chase them. So just knowledge, absorbing it, and then building out, a content library, catering around who that network is. Okay, you've identified that network. Who is that network? And then going in to really market that network and show them your values, because you have to be valuable in this industry in order to survive. And if you're not valuable and you're not showing values, for instance, if you're a 25-year-old that's graduating college and you're aspiring to be a real estate agent, most of your friends are going to be 25 to 28 years old. That's just how it is. So why are you marketing towards, are you going to sell your second home? Do you want an investment property? You have to take 3 steps back and say, are you ready to buy your first property? Right? Are you ready to, lease your first property, and then we can get you into a property to own? So you have to identify who that specific geographic and demographic target is, and then you can go in.
Oh, that's a great advice. Thank you for sharing that. And what's the time commitment like? We see the Ryan Serhants of the world. They always have a phone.
Yeah.
They're always, like, I gotta take this. Like, sorry, it's the weekend, the baby shower. I gotta take. Is that the expectation? Is time? Are you 24/7, Monday through Sunday on?
Yes, there's no other answer to that. I wish I could tell you yes, and you need to set aside your time. If you want to be successful, you have to do anything, and you have to have the right people around you to support you as well, the right cast of people, whether it's your partner, whether it's your friends or your family. If you don't have the right people supporting you and believing in you, it's never going to happen. And you can't count the hours or the days. You can't count the success. You just have to look back at certain points and say, okay, I've come this far. and it is a 7-day a week business. But I think I have many friends in other industries, and they could also agree that if you want it that badly, there's no time for, you have to set a time, personal time for yourself, and you have to have a schedule that caters to your health, your wellness, your well-being, and your family and your friends. But when it comes down to it, you're working 24/7, 365. Real estate is integrated with your life. You cannot put real estate to the side. It's integrated with your life.
Ah, great. I love that. That's very well put. And as we wind down here, I have just a few last questions. One of them
Yeah.
being any resources out there that you could think that are quick and easy to share with others that, hey, like if you're starting out, use this. I did it or I didn't do it, but I know I know I can do it.
Yeah. So if you're a Compass agent, on a team and you're starting off, Compass Academy is amazing. It's basically like a real estate university for new agents. If you're just simply diving into business, National Associations of Realtors offers many continuing education courses that are awesome. I believe they also do them online, and it's great to learn from. And I also think just linking up with somebody that you trust in the industry, especially loan officers who are going to be working with the majority of your clients to give them mortgages, as well as real estate attorneys or title and escrow companies, depending on the state that you're in, work with them. And if you can stay with them, you'll know the business inside out. But just trying to hope and pray that you're going to get a deal by posting, or you're looking to buy, sell, or lease is not going to come. You need to build the relationships and have those strong, everlasting relationships.
So for those listening, this is definitely a boots on the ground. Don't think you
Mm-hmm.
can do it the Instagram way. You got to get out there. And I have a fun question because most people would probably ask you, what entrepreneurial advice do you agree with? But we're going to ask you, because your real estate game is really glitz and glamour. What do you disagree with? What do you disagree with that, like, you open up your Instagram feed and you see these other agents or these coaches out there and you're like, stop, please.
The biggest thing is that there's a lot of people who see but don't do. Okay. There's a lot of webinars, there's a lot of seminars, there's a lot of growth coaches, there's a lot of coaches, and they do phenomenal work. But if you just continue to sit at conferences and don't implement and execute and just absorb and read and read and read, and you never do it. Like, I'm a doer. We get in there and we do it, right? So there's a lot of great advice out there, but take that advice and execute it. Don't just keep absorbing it and reading and this and that. It's like you have all this knowledge stored in your head. Go do it, right? And that's what I tell my team. Just go do it. There's just a lot of visual, auditory conferences, and that's all well and fine. And I do that too, and I enjoy that. But you gotta put the work in. And I just, we don't see that too much. So
Hey, like the being on the feed all day is nice, following all your favorite, Instagram
yeah,
influencers and real estate's nice, but at the end of the day, you're not going to get anywhere unless you're out there.
you can't get caught up in what other people's lives, right? And I think that's the issue with social media. You can use it as a positive platform or a negative platform. And if you continue to absorb knowledge, that's amazing, because I'm on social media all the time too. But you have to implement things that you see as well. There's so many amazing coaches. We have a personal coach. I have a personal real estate coach, and they do such a great job. But they always say to me, well, you can listen to me all day, but without actually executing some of these things that I'm telling you, what's the point of having me as a coach, right? So it just goes back to the point of, like, you have to actually put in the work. You have to work smarter and harder. You can't just work smarter, not harder. You got to work smarter and harder. So
Great message there. So, and last message is my last question for this interview is to those people listening, these rootless entrepreneurs, what is your final message to them in their real estate entrepreneurial journey? I'll let you give it your conclusion, to those people that have been listening to us.
learn how to pivot when times change. Follow the trends in the economy and know that nothing is ever going to stay the same, and have a backup plan, not a backup plan outside of real estate, but a real estate backup plan. So if the market changes and something happens, what are you going to do to provide the most and pertinent and real-time knowledge to your clients and show them the value of why they need to move, why they need to sell, but help them make the best decisions possible during that point in time as well. And
Thank
just
you.
look out for clients' best interests. It's the most important part.
That's key. Always look out for the client's best interest. Don't burn bridges, right? Like, people first, profit later is what I
Right.
say, because that's how you're going to be in this game a long time. Dante, thank you so much. That's all of the interview questions I had pertaining to the real estate journey. How can people connect with you? Or can they reach out to you, DM you? Like, please let them know how they can get in touch.
Yeah, I'm on Dante Bruzzese on all platforms. That's Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. It's Dante, Dante, Bruzzese, Bruzzese, and that's across all platforms.
Perfect. There you have it. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. I've truly enjoyed all the tips, especially on the branding and especially on the layering all three brands correctly that you've provided. It's been a pleasure, and thanks for being here today.
Oh, Greta, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was an amazing time.